Hello, everyone. I think I'm recording. Okay, hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study on UFOs in the Urantia book, but we're going to go to a different paper. We're going to start at paper 49, the Inhabited Worlds, and I think this really is closely related to what we've been talking about, and we're going to go all the way through this paper. And when we get to the end of this paper, however many sessions that takes, we will be going back to paper 16 and resume our study where we were before, I should say. Okay, so let's start here. And Diane, would you take that first paragraph? Let me raise it up a little bit here. Okay.
All mortal inhabited worlds are evolutionary.
You're muted, dear.
You're muted.
Yeah, thank you.
Strange night. All mortal inhabited worlds are evolutionary in origin and nature. These spheres are the spawning ground, the evolutionary cradle of the mortal races of time and space. Each unit of the ascendant life is a veritable training school for the stage of existence just ahead. And this is true of every stage of man's progressive paradise ascent. Just as true of the initial mortal experience on an evolutionary planet as of the final universe headquarters school of the Melchizedeks, a school which is not attended by ascending mortals until just before their translation to the regime of the superuniverse and the attainment of first stage spirit existence.
Okay, this is interesting. Why? Because it's telling us here that all inhabited worlds, all these worlds, if these UFOs are coming from mortal beings, all these worlds are evolutionary in nature, right? And they start out just exactly like we do.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and mute again, dear, because you're reverberating here. And they're just exactly like we start out. Okay, so they're all evolutionary and they all progress at different rates. So we probably have mortal worlds out there that are 1 million, 2 million, maybe even 1 billion years ahead of us. Okay, so those types of worlds would have technology that's totally different than ours. Okay, they would probably be considered, if we were transported to one of these evolutionary worlds that's so much ahead of ours, we would probably think it's like light and life, you know, because things would be much more perfect. All right, but it says here that all these worlds, every single one of them, is just like ours in the fact that it trains us for the beginning of the paradise ascent. And we start that where? On the first mansion world, right? Okay, and we all go through all the transition worlds and get to the worlds, the headquarter worlds of the Melchizedek in our local universe capital, and that's where we jump off to first stage spirit existence, right? So up to that, we're just progressing through the Urantia things. Now, what would that be according to what we've been studying? That would be the next dimension, would it not? If we think of the Urantia worlds and the Urantia existence all the way up, all the 590 different Urantia existences, those are all on a different dimension than we are, right? So the next one, the spiritual dimension, is going to be one even higher. And that's what Jesus was talking about on the way to Rome. All right. Let's see here. Who's next? Jane, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. All inhabited worlds are basically grouped for celestial administration into the local system, and each of these local systems is limited to about 1,000 evolutionary worlds. This limitation is by the decree of the Ancients of Days, and it pertains to actual evolutionary planets whereon mortals of survival status are living. Neither worlds finally settled in light and life, nor planets in the pre-human stage of life development are reckoned in this group.
Okay, so when we reach light and life, we'll be taken out of this category. right? In these 1,000 worlds, you know, our number is 606, right, for our world. So that means there's 606 inhabited planets, or there's actually 619, but our number 606 of those have inhabited planets. But they don't become numbered as an inhabited planet till when? They
Humans
become
arrive.
humans, that's right, the human stage. So the pre-human stages of life development, like the animals and things like that, the gorillas, the lemurs, and all these are pre-human, right? It was not until what? Andon and Fanta came along where we numbered as what?
606.
606. That's exactly correct.
Inhabited, right.
Inhabited world. Okay, let's go to the next one. Bill, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. Satania itself is an unfinished system containing only 619 inhabited worlds. Such planets are numbered serially in accordance with their registration as inhabited worlds. Just what we were discussing.
Just what we're saying, right? Always in the next paragraph, isn't it, Bill?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As worlds inhabited by will creatures. Thus was Urantia given the number 606 of Satania, meaning the 606th world in this local system on which the long evolutionary life process culminated in the appearance of human beings. There are 36 uninhabited planets nearing the life endowment stage, and several are now being made ready for the life carriers. There are nearly 200 spheres on which are evolving so as to be ready for life implantation within the next few million years.
No time at all, right?
No
No.
time at all.
None at all. Few million years. That's right. So that's how things are done, right? All right, let's find out a little bit more information on this. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Yes. Not all planets are suited to harbor mortal life. Small ones having a high rate of axial revolution are wholly unsuited for life habitats. In several of the physical systems of Satania, the planets revolving around the central sun are too large for habitation, their great mass occasioning oppressive gravity. Many of these enormous spheres have satellites, sometimes a half dozen or more, and these moons are often in size very near that of Urantia, so that they are almost ideal for habitation.
Okay,
Almost.
almost ready for
Yep.
habitation, right?
2 million years.
But not all planets are suited for mortal life. And this is important, what they were talking about, the large mass of some of them and the gravity being oppressive, because we're going to find out a little bit later in this paper about the different types of beings that can live on very unusual planets, okay? There's two things I need to make a correction on from last week. We watched the video before we had our meeting tonight, me and Diane, and there's two things I made an error on. One is the fact I stated that Dr. Greer had 3,500 contacts from alien beings. That is not correct. He has documented 3,500 UFOs that have come to this planet. That many UFOs have come to the planet. He has not actually contacted that many. That was a misquote by me. The other one was when we were talking about the surgeons of Avalon. I made it sound like Avalon is a planet. It's not. It's a local universe, just like we have a local universe. It's our closest local universe. And I said the surgeons of Avalon come up from a planet. They do come from a planet in Avalon, which is the closest local universe. Okay, but they are beings just like we are, you know, so they had to get here somehow, probably by some sort of ship, right? Now, I was also corrected that it never mentions a ship in the Urantia book, and this is true. It never mentions a ship.
True.
Mhm.
Okay, but it does mention that different types of levels of different types of reality have vehicles to travel in. Okay, so you can take that any way you want to. Okay, it talks about how when you first get to the mansion worlds, you get around a certain way, and then as you go up through the mansion worlds, you're in vehicles that you can travel both on land and in air in different ways. Okay, so they don't call them ships, but you know, you could spaceships.
Call them vehicles.
They call them vehicles.
Same thing.
Vehicles, right.
You know, you can call them anything you like, but if we're seeing them pop through the sky, okay, and they come up here and they disappear, to us, they are what?
Spaceships.
Right. That's right. That's what we call things like that. So anyway, let's go on. I want to make those two corrections before we moved on. So remember, Avalon is the closest local universe to us, and the surgeons of Avalon came from a planet in the local universe of Avalon. Okay, that's why they call them the surgeons of
Okay,
Avalon.
cool.
Okay, so I think I made that a little confusing last time.
I have an odd question, which it
Yeah, go ahead.
shows how little I know. Avalon is in another local universe.
Right.
Is there only one local universe within the grand universe? Like out of the 7 grand
No, there's 700,000 local universes.
universes in the one out of, we are in
Well,
number 7.
And number 7, that's a super universe, and there's 100,000 local universes
Local universe. Oh, wow.
in that one super universe. There's
I
100,000.
read that portion, but it
Yeah.
escaped me completely.
Listen,
Okay,
Jane, it took
it's
me
coming
years
back.
to figure out all this celestial
Yeah.
map out there. You know, it
It's
does.
enormous.
Yeah, it is. You read it and you read it and you read it, and it seems like it never sinks in. And then one day the light comes on and goes, I got it. You know,
Yeah, I
that sort of
forgot.
yeah, and listen, I've read this book at least 43 times over 43 years, and I forget stuff all the time. You can ask Bill and Rodney. I have to have them correct me and stuff all the time. You know, we're human beings, we're not perfect. Till we get that perfect brain, we'll never be able to have total recall, right? Where's that thing again? Okay, see if I can, okay, here we go. The oldest planet, inhabited planet. Okay, I think I've forgotten who. I think Bill, you're up next, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me.
Yeah, I just read.
You just read. Okay, Gary, you're up then.
Okay, the oldest inhabited world of Santania, world number 1, is Nova, one of the 44 satellites revolving around an enormous dark planet, but exposed to differential light of 3 neighboring suns. A nova is in an advanced stage of progressive civilization.
I would think
You know,
it would
with
be
that
if it's
type of information, I wonder if a astrologist could locate that planet.
You know, that's a good question, Gary. It probably is very possible because it describes it pretty good here, you know. And if we know it's the oldest planet in our system, it probably has certain characteristics that they don't even mention, right?
You're probably saying astronomer.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was trying to
Not
say.
yeah.
So Roger, if we go back up, I read that the moons around planets are almost suitable. However, now they're saying this one does have civilization.
Does have civilization, right? It says
Mhm.
some of them are almost suitable that's developing, Rodney, and some of them probably already do have inhabitants on it, you know, and which brings up a point, Rodney. It says in the book in a place that there are 3 planets in our system, our local system,
Right.
our own system, that are inhabitable. you know, and we don't really know which planets those are, right? We haven't had enough exploration or travel to be able to figure that out yet, right? But even with the high-powered telescopes and that sort of thing we have. Now, when you see how the different types of life on some of these planets, though, you're going to realize that some of these planets are inhabited in such a way that it's not what we would expect. It wouldn't be like our planet, a
Right.
green planet with lots of oceans and lots of vegetations. Some of them may be pretty barren, you know? So, yeah, it really depends on what kind of luck you get when you get born on a specific sphere, right?
Well,
Okay.
you know that you have the reptilian race, which you know would probably scare the hell out of us.
Yeah, I think we
Hmm.
would.
Yeah,
You know?
there's probably, you know, think about this, Gary. When we get to the mansion worlds, we're going to see beings that are considered human. They are all bipeds. In other words, they all walk upright, but they may have two arms, like they were talking about in that video. One of the Air Force people saying that one of the bodies they recovered actually had two legs and two arms, but it had four hands on it.
4 hands.
Yeah, two hands on each arm. Yeah,
So,
I got it.
Roger,
yeah.
when we go to the mansion worlds, we're going to have a different vehicle. They would too, right?
They will too.
Just like ours.
But Rodney, remember
Similar.
it says in the Urantia, in the paper on the mansion worlds, the longer you have that body, the more you resemble your original configuration, right?
Right.
So, and if you're a good person, you'll have a beautiful, wonderful looking body. But if you're nasty and mean and you're not kind to people and stuff, your body's not going to be that beautiful, right? So it reflects what you came from. So it would not surprise me, Rodney, even though we all get the same stock form, that these forms start very quickly looking like whatever type of race we came from. You know what I'm saying? Because think about it. They have different races awaken on different places on the mansion worlds because you awaken in a race that's native to your planet. Okay.
I remember reading that. Yes.
Remember reading that? So they have races for the violet race. They have awakening places for the violet race, the orange race, the green race, the white race, the black race. All these different races all wake up in an area that they're native to. Now, why would you think that would be? It's so that you're comfortable when you wake up with beings you're accustomed to, right?
Right.
Now, after you start moving around on that first mansion world and getting out and seeing all the other beings and stuff, you become more and more accustomed to different types of beings. You're not going to be afraid anymore because you realize there's nothing to be afraid of, right? You know, these beings will not be physically aggressive and that sort of thing. Why is that? They would not be physically aggressive? Because they're all what? Temporarily on that mansion world, and they all are going to try to put their best foot forward because what do they want to do? They want to live.
Evolve.
They want to evolve.
They want to do the will of God.
They want to do the will of God, and to do that, we have to get along with each other, right? You know, that's one of the main things. Okay, now I'm getting into preaching. We're not getting anything done. Let's get going on to the planetary life, to important stuff. Diane, would you take the next one? The first paragraph under planetary life.
Okay.
Would you unmute first, though, dear?
My brain is not working today.
Okay.
1, the planetary life. The universes of time and space are gradual in development. The progression of life, terrestrial and celestial, is neither arbitrary nor magical. Cosmic evolution may not always be understandable, predictable, but it is strictly non-accidental.
Okay, so everything that happens is not an accident. We are not an accident of time, right? And it's not magic. It's all planned out. There is control in the universe. Okay. Let's see here. Jane, would you take the next one?
Okay. The biological unit of material life is the protoplasmic cell, the communal association of chemical, electrical, and other basic energies. The chemicals formulas differ in each system, and the technique of living cell reproduction is slightly different in each local universe. But the life carriers are always the living catalyzers who initiate the primordial reactions of the material life. They are the instigators of the energy circuits of living matter.
Okay, so on every evolutionary planet, it's the life carriers that come in and start and kickstart the life, right? And they talk about this under the paper of the life carrier. Sometimes they bring the life from another planet, or they make it on another planet, and then they bring it to the planet they're going to. And other times they build it from scratch on the planet they go to. And what happened on our planet? They build it from scratch from what was here. Okay, so yeah, all the life was built from nothingness on our planet, or that was built from the primordial start on our planet. Okay,
And they are designed to fit the world that it is being put on.
that's exactly right. And they have certain ways to do this. Now, on ours, we are an experimental planet. So they have a little more leeway in developing our protoplasmic cells and stuff when they start, right? Okay,
You know
so
what that means?
yes,
No.
You know what that means? They have greater leadway to say, oops.
that's right. That's right, they do. I really didn't mean to make that being with three noses. I'm really
Or
sorry.
those little mosquitoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they say that some of the things that are on this world were supposed to progress. They have actually regressed.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Bill, would you take the next one? All the worlds?
Sure. All the worlds of a local system disclose unmistakable physical kinship. Nevertheless, each planet has its own scale of life, no two worlds being exactly alike in plant and animal endowment. These planetary variations in the system's life types result from the decisions of the life carriers. But these beings are neither capricious nor whimsical. The universes are conducted in accordance with law and order. The laws of Nebadon are the divine mandates of Salvington, and the evolutionary order of life in Satania is in consonance with the evolutionary pattern of Nebadon.
Okay, so who's in charge of all that?
Michael.
Michael and the creative mother spirit, right?
That's right.
They set up the rules, and then the life carriers follow the rules. Okay, they don't just make this stuff up as they go. All right, it's good to know. Rodney, would you take the next one?
Evolution is the rule of human development, but the process itself varies greatly on different worlds. Life is sometimes initiated in one center, sometimes in three, as it was on Urantia. On the atmospheric worlds, it usually has a marine origin, but not always. Much depends on the physical status of a planet. The life carriers have great latitude in their function of life initiation.
Why would you think that sometimes it's not always marine origin? Because some
Because
planets don't have any water when they start out, right? So they initiate the life even before it gets to the point where it has water. So the life implantation would be different on those planets. Okay, and we're going to find that out when we study the different types of beings on these planets, right?
I'd like to know where the three, it says life is sometimes initiated in one center, sometimes in three, as it was on Urantia. So where was it initiated on Earth?
Well, it actually tells us on the in the book on the in the paper of the life carriers, Gary. I can't tell you that.
Well,
right off
one
the
was
top
in
of my head.
Australia.
One
That
was in
part
Australia. One
that
was
broke
in
off
near the Mediterranean.
Mediterranean.
And I don't remember where
One
the third.
was in the Hudson
In-
Bay area in Canada.
There you go.
Oh.
That's all three. All right.
Hmm.
And they were all done in water, right? And they all did it in shallow basin water is what they talked about. In other words, it had to be like a protected area where the plasma, when they put it in there, could grow and multiply and that sort of thing and be safe until it actually produced something, right? Think of it this way. If you leave your swimming pool, I know this for a fact. If you leave your swimming pool alone and you don't treat it with chemicals, right? Leave it for a long period of time, several months, sooner or later, it will develop what? Creatures.
Life.
Tadpoles.
Its own life.
Yeah.
Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
it's
but of course it was different
a-
back then.
it
There
is
was no
back
life
then.
here.
There was no life, but there's something innate about the physical water on this planet. If you leave it static for a long period of time, it literally creates its own life because the life has already been implanted on the planet. So it's in everything, right?
Now, in all three of these life implantations on Urantia, it was in brine or
Brine,
salty water,
salty water. That's
not
right.
fresh water.
Not fresh water. Right. Right.
Right.
But an interesting experiment, get yourself a big bucket of water or something and just leave it alone for several months. And you're going to see life in that bucket sooner or later, whether it'll be mold or tadpoles, which create frogs, or, it's really interesting how this stuff happens, right? But that's because the life carriers have already manipulated the basic cellular structure to make this stuff happen. Right.
The thing about it is, you'll probably find in it that it's a bunch of mosquitoes going to be hitting on that water.
Yeah, yeah, and they carry stuff into the water too, don't they, Bill? Right.
That's correct.
That's right, and the birds and all sorts of stuff.
Mhm.
So, anyway, it's just an interesting study. Okay, let's keep going. Who's up next? I think Gary is up next, right?
Yeah, I think so. Where am I at?
In the
Okay.
development of
Okay. In the development of planetary life, the vegetable form always precedes the animal and is quite fully developed before the animal patterns differentiate. All animal types are developed from the basic patterns of the preceding vegetable kingdom of living things. They are not separately organized.
So it's a big mush of material that's put together, and everything comes from this basic mush of material. The vegetable comes first and then the animals, right? It's interesting too that the animals sustain themselves at first from what? The vegetables, the plants, right?
Right.
And then as it progresses on, the animals start doing what? Becoming
Carnivores.
carnivores. They eat each other, right? And that's the way it progresses. Even human beings, after they first started, what did they do? They started eating each other, right? Which is not a nice thought, but that's the way it works. Okay. All right. Let's see, Diane, would you take the next one?
The early stages of life evolution are not altogether in conformity with your present day views. Mortal man is not an evolutionary accident. There is a precise system, a universal law, which determines the unfolding of the planetary life plan on the spheres of space. Time and the production of large numbers of a species are not the controlling influences. Mice reproduce much more rapidly than elephants, yet elephants evolve more rapidly than mice.
Okay, now I'm gonna compare this back to the UFO saga stuff, right? Now, think about these beings that the military found in these spacecraft that crashed out at Roswell. Okay, they found 3 crafts that crashed in the first crash. All right, they found these beings that were kind of gray. They were small, less than 4 feet in height, spindly looking. They had a torso, much like we have a torso, but their arms were very thin and spindly, and they only had 4 fingers. Okay, if they only had 4 fingers, that's probably why one of the guys in the video talks about they had suction cups on their fingers that allowed them to manipulate things, right, with these suction cups. Now think about this. This planet evolved much like ours did, right? This goop was put in their oceans or however it was done, but the humanoid development of that planet was small and thin with big heads, larger eyes because they probably had lower light. They needed larger eyes to see better. So a lot of this evolutionary life and the life we see coming from other planets are that way because of their own evolution, right? It makes sense. They come into existence. If they have large lights, it's because they're a low light orb or something along that line. If they had small eyes, it would probably be because of what? They had a lot of light on their things. Now, why would they have a small spindly body? Because they didn't.
Very, very small gravity.
Small gravity.
Very,
That's right.
yeah.
They didn't need as much nutrition as our big fat people do as we are, right? The whole country is terribly overweight. You know, we all are. I am, everybody I know is.
Thanks.
But but that's our normal evolution. On another planet, it might be a normal evolution to be horribly thin and small, right? Because of the type of planet they live on. Okay, so let's just go on to the next one. Who's up next to read? Who just read? You did? Okay, Jane, would you take the next one?
Okay. The process of planetary evolution is orderly and controlled. The development of higher organisms from lower groupings of life is not. Did we read this one?
No.
We did, didn't we?
No.
No?
No.
Sorry. Is not accidental. Sometimes evolutionary progress is temporarily delayed by the destruction of certain favorable lines of life plasm carried in a selected species. It often requires ages upon ages to recoup the damage occasioned by the loss of a single superior strain of human heredity. These selected and superior strains of living protoplasm should be jealously and intelligently guarded once they make their appearance. And on most of the inhabited worlds, these superior potentials of life are valued much more highly than on Urantia.
So there's certain strains in human beings that have better DNA or better sperm and eggs, that sort of thing, right? And these type of strains of people should be propagated more. In other words, they should be guarded closely and made sure they think. Now, what happened on our planet about this?
Well, I
Remember
thought
the
Hitler
story
did
about,
that.
huh?
Hitler did that, right?
He did that, but the way he did it was
He
wrong,
tried.
right? Totally
Right.
wrong, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing of eugenics. Remember that? You
Mhm.
know, he was trying to develop the Aryan race, and there was no such thing as an Aryan race. Okay, it was the whole thing. The whole thing was predicated on a lie. That was the problem. Okay.
Plus, isn't there a principle on these teachings that the end does not justify the means?
It does not. That's right. It does not always
Yeah, so
justify
that's
the
a
length.
principle.
That's right. But
Mhm.
when we have a human being or something that appears in our normal progress, those of superior talents and things like that, those type of people should be what? They should be encouraged to reproduce, right? Have children, right?
They have a lot of children.
Have a lot of
Yes.
children. That's right. That's right. It's really
Yeah.
funny because if you think about it, the Mormons do just that, don't they? They marry and they have lots and lots of children because they want to propagate their own DNA, okay? And
Species, yeah.
their own species into the world, okay? And that's what they're talking about. These things should be guarded and recommend that they go on. Now, what happened in our thing? One thing about this, I want to talk about this temporary delayed or destruction of favorable lines of life plasm. Remember Yvonne and Fonda? What is, am I saying that right? Right.
Andon and Fonda.
Andon and Fonda. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Bill. Andon and Fonda. They were almost killed accidentally. Do you remember that in the story?
Yeah.
And if that would have happened, that would have done exactly what they said right here. Okay. It would have delayed the superior strain of Andon and Fundman from reproducing and make human beings develop. It would have taken longer for that to happen. Okay?
If I remember correctly, I think they mentioned an earthquake.
Yeah, they did. If I remember, I think that's right, Bill. I can't swear to it, but I think that was the thing that almost killed them. Right. All right. All right. Let's go on to the planetary physical types. This is the ones I had trying to get to. All right, Millie, could you take that very first paragraph under planetary physical types?
Yes, I am finally here.
Yes.
There is a standard and basic pattern of vegetable and animal life in each system, but the life carriers are oftentimes confronted with the necessity of modifying these basic patterns to conform to the varying physical conditions which confront them on numerous worlds of space. They foster a generalized system type of mortal creature, but there are 7 distinct physical types, as well as thousands upon thousands of minor variants of these 7 outstanding differentiations.
Okay, Millie, go ahead and read the 7 different types too for us.
1 is the atmospheric type.
Atmospheric type.
Atmospheric type, and 2 is the elemental type. 3 is gravity types. 4 temperature types, and 5 electric types. 6 energizing types, and 7 unnamed types.
Okay, so these are different types of physical beings that are fostered by the life carriers on different types of planets and systems because of the configuration of the planet itself. Okay, now why would this be important? Because each one of these types would produce a different type of mortal creature. Okay, so if you let's take an example. If you were an atmospheric type, chances are you would be able to negotiate in the air quite easily. So that would mean you would probably develop from some type of creature like a bat. Okay, you would be able to fly because you are an atmospheric type, and it would depend on your survival to be able to fly through the air. Make sense? All right. There's a lot of different types of beings here, and each one has a different thing that makes them unique. Now, we're going to talk about some of these as we go through the atmospheric types and the elemental types and all that sort of thing. So we'll try to get to a couple of these here before we quit. So let's go on to the next sentence, and let's go to the next 2 paragraphs. Diane, would you take those, the next 2?
Contains all of these types and numerous intermediate groups, although some are very sparingly represented. 1. The atmospheric types. The physical differences of the worlds of mortal habitation are chiefly determined by the nature of the atmosphere. Other influences which contribute to the planetary differentiation of life are relatively minor.
All right. And they're going to break these down for us a little bit at a time. Okay, starting with the atmospheric types and the type of breathers they are. Okay, Jane, would you take the next paragraph, please?
Okay. The present atmospheric status of Urantia is almost ideal for the support of the breathing type of man, but the human type can be so modified that it can live on both the super-atmospheric and the subatmospheric planets. Such modifications also extend to the animal life, which differs greatly on the various inhabited spheres. There is a very great modification of animal order on both the sub and the super atmospheric worlds.
So what are they talking about, atmospheric types? This is about different types of mortals and creatures or animals that can breathe or not breathe the oxygen or the mixture of the gas on the planet. Okay, so if we had very, very little air, very, very little oxygen on this planet, what do you think that would be?
Sub.
So that would be a sub-atmospheric type, right? Because you don't have much oxygen. Now, if you had way too much oxygen on the planet, what do you think that would be?
Super.
That would be a super-atmospheric type, right? All right, and we're speculating on this. So let's move to the next planet, or the next planet. I wish we could move to the next planet. Next paragraph and keep moving on this. I'm out in space today. How about that here?
You don't know.
Bill, would you take the next one, please? Yeah, okay. Of the atmospheric types in Satania, about 2.5% are sub-breathers, about 5% super breathers, and over 91% are mid-breathers, altogether accounting for 98.5% of the Satania world.
So 98% of the worlds are these, right? And there's 2% more that's not like this. All right, let's go on to the next one. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
Yes. Beings such as the Urantia races are classified as mid-breathers. You represent the average or typical breathing order of mortal existence. If intelligent creatures should exist on a planet with an atmosphere similar to that of your neighbor Venus, they would belong to the sub-breather group.
Super breather group.
Super. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
While those inhabiting a planet with an atmosphere as thin as that of your outer neighbor, Mars, would be denominated sub-breathers. So I had it backwards in my mind.
Yeah. So what is this telling us? Y'all don't run out and move to Mars thinking you're going to see people there that are sub-breathers, right? They may not be there. It may be an empty world. Okay, let's read one more paragraph before we quit tonight so that we can start on the elemental types next time. Gary, would you take the next one, please?
If mortals should inhabit a planet devoid of air, like your moon, they would belong to the separate order of non-breathers. This type represents a radical or extreme adjustment to the planetary environment and is separately considered. Non-breathers account for the remaining 1.5% of Satania's world.
So 1.5% of the worlds in Satania
Non-breathers.
are non-breathers, right? You know. Now think about this before we quit for tonight. If one of these beings, like this non-breather, okay, came to our planet, or either the super breather or a sub-breather, either one. If they came to our planet and they had a ship that they came in and it crashed on our planet, what would that mean? That means they would probably suffocate, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
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 because they couldn't survive, right?
Mhm.
Unless
Except
we,
for the non-breathers.
except for the non-breathers, because we would have to put something together for them so they could survive in their normal habitation if their ship or whatever they came in was damaged, right? Think about that.
Well,
So
wait a second. When you're talking about the non-breathers wouldn't have a problem. They just walk
they wouldn't
around.
have a problem, right?
But the super
Super
breathers and the
breathers
sub
would.
breathers,
The,
we'd
the
have to
super breathers
modify
or
the
the
air for them.
We'd
Right.
have to, yeah, we'd have to put them in something that they could breathe in, right?
So we can send all the sub breathers to Denver.
You know, it could work. That could work.
Could work. You never know. You could
Mhm.
also put them in a chamber, like you use for divers. So you could take the atmospheres down, right?
Right.
Make them more comfortable. So there's always ways to modify things, which is interesting because what was the Air Force guy's name, dear? I can't remember his name. That was talking that one of the aliens lived till 1952.
That was
Doty.
Doty.
He was a OSI officer in the Air Force for like 20 years. And he was telling that in 1947, one of the, I don't know if it was the 47, it must have been the 47 crash, that they had one alien that was still alive. Okay. And they kept him alive until 1952, where he passed in 1952. But he didn't say whether they, had to modify something or what to keep him alive. But apparently that alien lived on the earth from 47 to 52. That's almost 5 years, but they had to assign a linguist to him that learned how to communicate with him telepathically because he couldn't speak, which is kind of interesting too, but there's always ways to get along with everyone in the universe. Just because he did not look like us, talk like us, communicate like us, does not mean we can't come up with something that we can communicate with other beings and help them survive.
And
Right.
also that linguist stayed with him all his selfish.
That's right. The linguist actually stayed with him, lived with him all the time he was alive. So they didn't leave him alone. So he had someone, a companion, all the time that he was alive, which is kind of interesting. Which is probably the same guy they used on the whites, as they said. He talked to him.
I wonder how the linguist was able to communicate with them.
Apparently, the linguist already had some telepathic type abilities. Some of us are blessed with some telepathic abilities. We know that, but apparently this linguist had that ability, and after a period of time could communicate. They actually tried to surgically, he said, make vocal cords for this alien because he didn't have vocal cords. He couldn't speak. So he was telepathic. So kind of interesting, There's a lot, there's so many things in our universe that we don't know about. It's just an amazing, amazing world, and universe. It really is,
Star Trek.
Yeah. Okay, let's close it off for tonight, and we'll take this up from next time. Man, anybody want to pray? I'm kind of out of breath. Sweetie, would you pray for us again? Yeah.
Father, we just thank you so much for another evening of studying your word and learning and gaining depth and understanding of your creations. And we just feel so privileged to have your book provided for us, and also the opportunity to study and to learn more about what your plans are for us in the future, and for the vastness of your creations. We are honored to be here, and we thank you for these opportunities that you provided for us. And we just thank you and pray in Jesus' name, Christ Michael. Amen.
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 And thank you all at home for joining us. Please come see us again.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you all. I
All
enjoyed
right.
it.
All right. Y'all have a great weekend. I'll see you on